Zoom, and I'd say, considering the way of the world, things are going as well as can be expected.
Is there any problem popping up that the coalition might support you in addressing?
I'm sorry, were you talking to me? I've got dogs playing in the background.
Yeah, I was asking, is there something going on the coalition can help with?
Well, we had Terry Hall and Ed Garland at our was it March Zoom meeting, talking to us about this topic, and so we're trying to learn as much as we can, and we have our April Zoom meeting is next Tuesday, or this coming Tuesday, and Judge Mark Leverett is going to be joining us, and if any of you would be interested in joining that Zoom meeting, I'd be happy to send you an invitation to it.
Great, we appreciate that. Excuse me. You're going to have a nice new piece of information for your Tuesday meeting out of what we're going to get from today. Good news is coming, and by Tuesday, I expect we will have an annual report, and then we will have the benefit of that information. John Hedrick, what's going on downtown?
I'll have to pass because I'd been traveling and wasn't able to make the meeting last week, and just getting back in the swing of things. But so far, it seems things are about on par.
Okay. Excuse me. Walker, do you have anything out of Capitol View Station we should know about?
Well, we had a cleanup of what we hope to make a Rose Creek Park, and then it rained and more trash came down the creek. It'd be real nice if we could ban plastic bags. There's a speech to text feature. Could we enable that? Would anybody care? And could you loan out this this Zoom account to neighborhood associations that wanted to use it?
I think that is eminently possible now that we have purchased one for the coalition in the upgrade version. It would be coming from my account and a computer, and I would be interested in attending these meetings anyway. The coalition should be taking part. So I think that's very possible. I would say if somebody would like that service, they should contact me.
Okay, Kathy, let me ask you a question. Obviously, the people the people that have already joined this morning and so forth are part of the list that you regularly email to. Is part of Robert's question, now that we have this upgraded version, and I'm pretty clueless about all that, but I'm wondering if there's, well, as we know, some of them are very active, some of them are sort of inactive and all that, but let's say instead of emailing to 20 people as you normally do, about, or 25, should we be emailing the Zoom announcement to 70 neighborhood groups and saying you're welcome to, you don't have to be anybody could attend a coalition meeting as long as they endorse our objectives. So you get my point. We could invite more visitors or others.
I think that is true, and it's false. It's true that any one of our recipients who are themselves neighborhood leaders in running their own neighborhood network could, and one has done, a forwarding of our invitation and link to the meeting,
all right,
which would presumably reach those civic active and interested in news paying members in
Right.
the neighborhood network of X.
All right.
We haven't yet gotten to the point of like putting it up on our Facebook page, which is yet again a wider bunch. We certainly always have the ability to cast the net wide and then exclude someone from troublemaking that might come in or try to come in that way.
So, well,
So we're willing to do that, but we've got to be cautious. And right now it's pass along point.
so in effect, other neighborhoods you're emailing to them at least somewhat periodically and inviting them to join, to attend the virtual meeting if they wish, or pass on the information.
I need to probably send an explicit email to the standard 20 that says you're welcome to forward it on to your own network, because I
That's
bet you
fine.
haven't done that.
That's fine. That's fine. That sounds good to me.
We will try that out and see what it comes. Especially valuable, I think, because next time we have hopes that Mayor Scott will be addressing us on May the 8th about his proposed sales tax. And that, of course, will generate a wide interest. And with the upgrade, we now can accommodate 100 participants. But I think we'll get them. The most we got the last time we were doing a forum, I think it was 50. But that is, I think, a very possible number. And we are well prepared to undertake that. So when you do get your May 8th invitation, feel free to go on and pass it along, is what I would leave you all with on that point. Let's see. Well, it looks like we're not adding on folks, and we've reached 15 minutes, so let us plunge into more meaty topics. One thing that I would like
Robert
to
would like to say something.
Oh, Robert, yes.
Should we conduct a poll on the mayor's proposal and let them know the results? And I think it's possible to record these. Are you recording it?
Yes, we are recording this session, and
Yeah.
I think we can just put it up on YouTube account. Is that right, Mary?
Yes.
Okay. About the polling, we've got some technical abilities we've not gotten into, Robert. And so I don't know what the inclination would be about that, but we can certainly explore that. Bear with me while I'm making a little old-fashioned written note about that. My future job there. So at this point, I'm going to ask Mary to screen share a document from Mary Julia that is the fruit of discussions throughout last year on how neighborhoods can report rent houses addresses to Terry and Oscar and the code inspectors. Because they're always eternally chasing unknown new rent houses. And it turns out that the city staff, Melissa Bridges in particular, I think, was credited with creating a simplified form for any citizen to send an address to the proper authorities to add it to the database and the inspection roster. What you see on the screen before you is the first draft. This will be up on a link shortly. We will be informed and given the link when it is live. And as you can see, I think you can see, Mary, can we run it from top to bottom? Is there more below the visible? Yeah. It's a very simplified form. And Mary Julia just gave us a screenshot, I think. So rejoice. We have good things coming that would be very widely circulated and enable us all to make sure that the rent houses we have are on the official record. Um,
May I ask, is this now what is, once this gets fine tuned and, as you say, posted for actual use, where do you find it on the city government website or somewhere else?
It'll be somewhere on the city government website. That's the link we're looking for to come.
Okay. And it says submit a rental address that is not currently registered. Well, I think the truth is we probably won't know whether it's registered or not. So the idea would be submit the address anyway, and if it's already in the database, everything's fine. If it's not, they know to add it. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. With the added element that activists in a number of neighborhoods are getting from official sources, the existing roster of rent houses. So they have something to compare this new address to. But you're right. If you see someone actually moving in and there's a friendly neighborhood overtures of, hi there, Jim, welcome to 22nd and Gaines. And Jim says, oh, well, I'm just renting this. And you say, oh, well, we hadn't realized that this was a rental. Who's your landlord? And, you chat them up. And then you go make sure that that address is returned to city authorities.
And so, what's his name? Massinelli, the treasury, the guy that runs the revenue office.
The business license.
Then if they get a name and an address that's not in the current database, they then send them a notice that says you need to come in and register or something.
Exactly. What happens is two outcomes. One is they're put on the business license, pay up, we will bill you annually roster.
Right.
And it goes into Terry and Oscar's hands. In this point, Terry, I guess I will pick on you. Are you familiar with this? And how do you handle somebody turning in a suspected rental property to add it to the official roster?
Yeah, we are real familiar with it. We even run into it when we are doing rental inspections. What we do, we get the address of the property, and you can get the property owner's name or business name, and we just send that to Scott Messinelli or somebody in finance department, and they send them a notification that they need to pay for a business. Or some of them don't even be registered at all. They had to get the business license and pay the business fee.
Well, it's good that we're getting a new tool in the kit and something citizens can readily have at hand and make use of, because particularly the whole house rentals has been a real challenging category to get current information on.
And that goes along with what Jim was saying just a minute ago. Even if you're not for sure, you can still send it to them and they will check it to make sure whether they have it listed as a rental property and whether they have paid the fee for the business.
Yeah, Terry, real quick while you're there, one of my main occupations these days is walking the dog. And so on my several routes through neighborhood areas, residential areas, you'll pass a house that's got I'll call it a garage or a carriage house or a freestanding structure and so forth. And it's pretty obvious that it's being used as a dwelling unit. Now, those are counted as rental properties, right? So they need to be registered.
Yes, that would be counted as rental. Any property that someone is charging someone to stay at can be counted as a rental property.
Okay, great. Well, I see a few all the time, and it always occurs to me, I wonder if they even know that they're supposed to register and be inspected. So I'll start writing some of them.
Jim, yes.
Yeah.
Start writing them down and sending them in.
Okay.
Please, let's hear from Robert Walker. And we can take down the form. I think we've seen it enough, Mary.
Okay, I've been going around my neighborhood just yesterday, and I see these piles of debris and old furniture beside houses. So I can pretty well say those are rental properties and they left and the landlord threw out the trash and the city is going to come pick it up, which is a subsidy for a business as far as I can see. But there's another phenomena that occurs regularly in the spring. People who are real in hard duress on paying bills will just opt to quit paying a utility or two, and the utilities cannot shut them off until the temperature gets above freezing. I don't know the regular, but basically there's a bump when the utilities get to go around turning off unpaid bills. And does anybody check on that? Has that been a larger amount this year? Because a lot of people have been in trouble. And so does anybody count that and look at it for the city or the state or anything? And why should the city subsidize a business when they pick up all this discarded furniture, although I realize we do have to do it?
In fact, we had a discussion with John Honeywell on the pickup of such as that. And what they developed was for repeat requests, everybody gets one freebie pickup at your address per year. And I can get the current readout on that, but where it was left months ago was that if an individual requests more than one, and they developed the record to see what that pattern was, and sure enough, it was exactly as you said, Robert. Landlords were regularly getting these pickups of quantities of material off the car, bulk debris. And they said, okay, the new rule is for second and subsequent pickups, we charge you. My dim memory is that's $25 a load. And I've forgotten, there was a dispute, debate policy on how they would bill that. Terry or Oscar, do you know the answer to that question about paying for pickups?
I can discuss a little bit of it, but I'm not 100% sure how they are doing it. And I know you was saying business, but what they have difference is you have a commercial property and residential property. That's why they pick up at the residential properties, although that is a business. Now, the other part of it, they did try to put in a thing where they would do the first pickup, then they'd say they would charge you so much per so many square yards for the second pickup.
Oh, cubic feet, I think it is, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that number was, but I know that's what they was trying to do. I know at one time they was having a lot of trouble with it because people would put stuff in front of the vacant lots and stuff like that instead of putting it in front of their house. So I'm not sure how that is working.
I'll take on the job of checking back with Honeywell and finding out the current status of that. I know that particularly in the case of the outrage of dumping it in the neighbor's front curb or some vacant lot that might track back to a property owner, which was one way they were beginning to bill because of the trash on vacant lots. So they went back to pay taxes on the lot. There was an appeal process that they had set up in waste management in the bulk waste department, so that if something got dumped on Robert Walker's front curb by an unscrupulous neighboring landlord, there's a contact that enables him to say, look, I'm the victim of a midnight dump by an unscrupulous neighbor. And they would resolve that and not just say, we don't care, we're just going by billing by what address it's at. So I know that's good news, and we can refresh that information too.
They're also taking things down to the property we want to turn into a park, and we just cleaned it up, and it's really disheartening then when people take mattresses down there and dump them.
Gee. Terry, do you have any information about expanding city security cameras into parks? Because there's no interest in keeping parks safe.
No, I do not.
Well, I'll ask the parks people about that.
Yeah,
Although
that would probably be Parks, or even, I'm not sure who would be setting it up. It may be Little Rock PD if they're going to put cameras in there, but it would be one of those two groups that you would probably have to get with on that.
We're talking about putting up some game cameras, but then how would any enforcement, even if you saw somebody dumping it, how would you get it enforced that he was doing illegal dumping and he should be arrested?
Well,
if you get the
if I
license
may,
tag on the car, you got them.
yeah, if I may, I was going to chime in for what it's worth. And Denise said that they were going to have the municipal judge come in at our next session. He ought to be asked, or the point ought to be made, illegal dumping is illegal dumping. And it doesn't matter whether you take it out and throw it in a creek out in Roland, or throw it on an empty lot somewhere in the city of Little Rock, or what's the name of that creek down there that you've got, Robert?
Rose Creek and
Rose,
the
or you
other
throw it
big
into
one in the
Rose
city is
Creek.
Jefferson.
Yeah, it's all illegal. And notwithstanding rental property rules and, charging $25 for the second, third, and fourth pickups. Actually, I'm not only for the charging the $25. It seems to me that a landlord who just refuses to pick up the stuff on his curb and is going to make it someone else's problem, ought to be hauled into municipal, get their license plate. And I don't know, Terry or prosecuting attorney or somebody, but somebody in a position, I guess it would be the city attorney, I guess, because they're the people that represent the city in municipal court. But these, scofflaws or neglectful people, they need to be held to account. I think everybody in the meeting would agree, trash is a huge problem. It is a huge problem. I mean, we've got a pretty city, we've got hills and waterways and trees and nice neighborhoods, but the trash, in my judgment, is just out of control. And we need to get serious about people who dump and litter.
Yeah, Jim, this particular aspect of neglect of properties was not included in the list of questions that we sent to Judge Leverett so that he could come prepared. And what we sent him was far more than he'll be able to cover during our meeting. But while it is something that does need to be addressed, we were focused moreover on the structures, rental structures, and why they remain on the unsafe vacant list for so long. What can be done to help the owners of these properties to do something with them, or force them to
I'm
take
volunteer
it.
to just pursue that with Leverett directly. So
Pardon me?
I will pursue that dumping of landlords and trash issue with Judge Leverett directly, Denise. We won't try and lay up your agenda.
Yeah,
So,
our agenda is pretty
thanks.
booked up.
That does take us to something that Mary Henthorne discovered, who's apparently left her chair. Okay. But she was reporting to me as we began the meeting that she had checked in with the city's open data portal 311 category. And there was, let's see, open tickets dating back to February of 2017 that totaled up 2,588 addresses or cases. So Terry or Oscar, one, have you managed to continue to close cases and report that on down to the data that citizens access? Or do you really have 2,588 cases you're still going back to?
I would have to look and see what that is, because we do a end of year every year. where we close out everything, where we look to see if anybody has missed anything to close it out. And I'm not sure where something would come from back to 2017. That would be something I would have to go back in and look, because we go every year, December, first quarter of January. That's what we are doing, is closing out everything for the year. So I'm not sure what that is. Is it with rental properties, or is it something else?
Mary, what would you say that category of 311 is? Structures both owner and rental?
I think the issue might be a failure to clean up the old data. That was the discussion a year ago,
Right.
and I just don't know that the data cleanup process has happened yet.
Thank you.
Now, one thing we did have happen this year, I don't know when you pulled the information, but somehow we had someone actually reactivated something in the system, and it opened up a bunch of stuff actually back from 2007 all the way to 2021. So I don't know if all that has been closed back out yet, because it was stuff that shouldn't have been in the system in the first place, because we wasn't even using the 311 system during that time. So I don't even know how it loaded it in the system, but it did, and all of that stuff had been closed, but it reopened all of it.
Okay, we'll keep on checking with the people running the data record about the oopsie, I will call it, for better.
And like I say, I'll go back into the system, and I can pull up everything in 2017, and it'll show me whether anything is left open or not. And I can see what it is, then I can probably see whatever happened.
It's easy for the public to see which cases are open. All this data is all available online. The issue that was up a year ago, it seems there are a lot more open cases on this public data than there actually are in the system. And until this data is cleaned up, I'm afraid that the reports we're creating aren't valid. And that goes for anybody else who's downloading this data.
Well, can I ask Terry or maybe Mary? I mean, I don't want to divert the discussion into techno discussion, but there's the 311 database, and then I gather Terry and the rental and housing code people have their database. So could it be that the 311 database, Mary, is just not, as you say, attended to, cleaned up periodically, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't look at the data almost daily, it's almost worthless.
Well, a year ago, when we were meeting face to face with Ed Garland, we determined that there was data in the system that needed to be updated. So just a quick look at it now, seeing this many open cases, I suspect it hasn't been cleaned up yet. Yeah. And until it's cleaned up, any reports we create are questionable.
And the 311, as I understand how it works, I mean, it's online, so whatever the problem is, high weeds, garbage cans all over the place, all that, any citizen can, quote, create an open case. And so, I'm not saying that, obviously that's a good idea in the sense of it's accessible and available and all that, but I can imagine it can be overwhelming in terms of database maintenance.
Well, Jim, one of the things with the 311, everything we do, even the rental, is entered into the 311 system. Now, sometimes we have, and going back to 2017, that was actually when we were just getting started using the system quite a bit. And you do have people that's out in the public that will enter stuff into the system. If they don't enter if they don't go through the full process of creating the complaint, it doesn't assign it to anybody. It's just left out in, and every so often somebody had to go back in and pull all this stuff out and reassign it to people. Now in 17, since we wasn't actually fully using it at that time, could that be what this is? I'm not for sure. That's why I'm gonna go back and take a look at it and see what we have.
Well, I'm sympathetic. Not to go on about it, but at ULR, part of what I was paid to do was oversees a lot of university-wide records. See, in college recruiting, everybody now, you go online and you want to be a student at Harvard, you want to be a student at UALR, and you apply online. Well, you know, these 17-year-olds that want to go to college open an enrollment form and fill it out, and then in the middle of the enrollment form, their buddy calls them and says, "Oh, let's go down to the park and play volleyball." Well, it's left sitting there, and 2 days later, he says, "Oh, I was doing that enrollment." Now he goes back, and guess what? His old one is still sitting there unattended. The computer doesn't know what to do with it, and then he thinks he picks up on it and completes it. Well, guess what he's done? He's created a second record. So now he's tried to enroll twice, and the computer really doesn't know what to do with him. It's a madhouse, and I can imagine this. We've got a similar situation here.
Well, actually, there's another feature that I think is getting overlooked here. Confirm me in this, Terry, but I understand that right now, you co-inspectors are basically making use of the 311 structure for your own, call it case assignment and workload. So it's not just that Jim might report a carriage house rental, or that Kathy might report something going on. It's that when you all get up in the morning and you begin, let's say that rotation of rental inspections that we've been talking about, 1 through 10. I'm just pretending you're going to get through 10 of them today. At particular 10 addresses, those get entered into 311. Your inspectors are putting in addresses into 311.
Yeah, the inspector put every address they inspect into the 311 system. And so all the rental inspections, every rental inspection we do during the year should be entered in that system. And that's where, like at the end, when we get ready to do the report and stuff, we just go back in and look by inspector and see how many inspections he did, and that give us a list of what all was done that year.
And where you find someone in compliance and you close it out within your own structure, that inevitably should register as a closure in the 311 system, right, Terry?
Right, that should close it in the system.
So we've obviously got some hiccups probably here and there in older cases. But keep in mind that while we think of as 311 as something where citizens are bringing material to the city, these city workers have made use of it for their own, call it internal workload and recording. And we don't properly appreciate that, particularly where we're trying to pull out, as Mary has done, these 311 statute reports, status reports. When we get it cleaned up, that will in fact be tracking how well the inspectors are getting out and getting to addresses and getting to cases. Terry, were you able to find that annual report anywhere in your setup?
No, I have not yet, but I know I've got it. I just got so many emails I'm trying to look through.
Well,
when you get it, and send it on to us, and we will relay it in our network, and we will pronounce that message and move on. There was a report compiled. That's the main thing that we would check on today. You did one, right, Terry?
Yeah, we did one, and I'm gonna let you all know that it won't be what our usually reports be because of the year that passed. Because we, as a department and people and stuff like that, you had to kind of stay away from people. We tried to handle everything we could. Some of it we had to do over the phone. From probably January, mid-January to probably the first part of March was the main time that we did any rental inspections completely. And then after that, we would get complaints. We would contact people to see what they complaint were, and we tried to handle that through the apartment complex and through the people and through the maintenance people. And the majority of it worked real good. We hardly ever got any calls back, which kind of surprised me. And I guess people were trying to say, well, if we can keep from having a rental inspection, we would do it. And that's what Ed was putting together to send to you all. And he had actually put together a little memo kind of explaining the steps of what we had to go through during the year because of COVID and all that. But I know things are getting better now, and it's starting to look like probably maybe June or July, we may be back to full force, where we'll be going back to what we did before the COVID started. So at that point, everything should pick up again.
Yeah, if I may, Terry, I appreciate the explanation, but just to drill down just a little bit further, you get a call. I understand all the limitations of last year. It was smarter for people to stay away from each other. But you get a call about a rental unit, and so you said handle it over the phone with surprisingly good results. By handling it, you mean, okay, you've got a complaint about an address at 1911 Scott Street. You look in your registry, you know there is a rental unit at 1911 Scott Street. Somebody contacts the landlord at 1911 Scott Street and says, you know, you've got a gas leak there. You need to correct that.
The thing was, Jim, we didn't get very many at houses. The majority of the calls came from apartment complexes. We would get one from a house every once in a while.
Okay.
We got one that I went out to inspect myself. And one of the main reasons I went out to do it, I wanted to see what was going to happen if I went out to inspect this property. I talked to the lady before I got there. I asked her, I said, you know, you're going to be required to wear a mask. I'm going to be required to wear a mask. I'm going to ask you to stay back a certain distance while I'm doing the inspection, and then I'll do the inspection. Well, of course, when I got there, it didn't happen that way. But I did have on my mask and stuff. Every room I went to, she followed me in every room. One time I turned around and she was standing so close behind me, I almost bumped into her. And that gave me the feeling, okay, you know what's going to happen if you go out to do an inspection. Now, the ones that we did get mainly on apartment complexes, we could call the manager. We did get a few on houses that we already had the contact number for the owner or the management company, and they did take. We would get the tenant to take pictures and send it to us so we could see what the complaint was, so we could tell whoever we contacted, okay, this is what they complaining about. Can you get this taken care of? And we would also tell that tenant, if they didn't repair it in a certain number of time, to give us a call back, and we would see what else we need to do. But the majority of the time, we got a call back that they took care of it, or we never got another phone call.
Well, sounds like you did what you could do under the limitations.
Oh, wasn't there a sampling of large complexes policy in place, Terry? I know that you were not going straightforwardly at the X complex with 100 units, and you were going out there to sample, what was it, 20? I've forgotten the number.
It is 20% of whatever the total number in the apartment complex is.
Did you get to do any of that? And how did that work out? I guess is my question.
No, we didn't. We did get to one complex. It was early, which was Barrington Hills, which we got to that before all the issues started. But after that, we didn't get to any of the rest of them because we were just getting everything in place and the ordinance was just getting posted and stuff like that. So we didn't really get to use it that much. And me and Ed was talking about the other day, and I told Ed that, you know, once this we go back to regular duties, whenever that may be, then it's going to be, we're going to have some stuff we have to catch up on that we got called on. We know that. And then we're going to go ahead and push forward to finish doing what we started out to do at the beginning of 2020.
Well, we will look forward to the progress reports throughout 2021 as everything begins to change? Because we're really curious to know how well that seems to serve.
I think it'll work pretty good because we did do some inspections where we went in beforehand and you really didn't find anything, and that was even before this ordinance was changed. We inspected some entire apartment complexes when we could have said, well, once we get half of this, we could be done because we're not finding anything at all in this complex. But at that time, we had to inspect the entire complex.
So your view is that if you got through 20 units of 100 units and you were finding substantial or pretty perfect compliance, you would be able to sign off on the whole complex with a clear conscience?
Yes, I would.
Well,
All right.
that's the idea.
Usually from what I found, especially by the complex not going to be able to select the units you inspect. You're going to select a certain number of keys for units you inspect. So there's no way somebody can get prepared ahead of the inspection to say, well, I know where you're going to go. They're not going to have any idea. So that's what to give me a better feeling about what I see when we do the inspections.
Can I ask one other question? I know I don't want to, divert. It is related to rental inspection.
No, Oscar, I think has his hand up, if I understand my signage correctly. Is that correct, Oscar? You had something to contribute?
No, man, I was just listening. I don't know why my hand will be
Well, there's a
up.
little hand up on your screen in my face. And I
It's,
don't want to neglect calling on you. Okay, back to you, Jim.
Okay, very quickly. It's been a year and a half or more. Somebody, of course, it's a free country, they've sued the city over rental inspection. They want the whole damn ordinance thrown out. Well, it's a repeat of a lawsuit that was filed within 6 months after the program was adopted in 93 or 94. Same lawsuit, same language, same everything and so forth. Has it filtered? Does anybody, I know you're not the city attorney, but I haven't heard a darn thing about this lawsuit. It ought to be dismissed because the issues have already been decided. I will add in federal court. This is a state court filing. Have you heard anything about it?
I haven't heard anything about that since the very first email came out on it. I hadn't heard anything else about it.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I know they was going to try to get it dismissed, but I hadn't heard whether it was dismissed or what happened with it.
I'll ask Tom Carpenter. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we cover everyone's questions or what you wanted to bring to us today, Terry?
I think I've been over just about everything that we had, unless somebody else has a question that they want to ask.
Yeah, I have one real quick.
Okay.
Maybe, these times are a change in virus and all that notwithstanding. Have you run into any landlord? We've got some, I read news stories every now and then about people all of a sudden asserting non-existent freedoms. The mask issue. I don't have to wear a mask if I don't want to. Well, yeah, in some places you do. Have you run into landlords that say, you can't come in here and I'm not going to let you?
No, we haven't run into any yet. Now this go around. Now, we did run into one a little while back that was, and it ended up being a court case, and I think that's even where the thing came from, trying to claim that the rental inspection ordinance was not legal and stuff like that. All of that was with dealing with that same person. But other than that, we hadn't run into anybody else.
Okay, well, it's good to hear. Thank you.
All right. And if it's nothing else, I'm going to leave. I have to go somewhere else. And
Well, we would say thank you for participating. And we certainly appreciate that you need to exit the session. And you, Officer Oscar, and we will just continue to exchange information by email and phone next week. Thank you for coming.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good weekend.
Bye-bye.
For the rest of the group, I do have a couple of updates before we part company here. The flowers gifted to the COVID-19 medical staff at the local hospitals was very well received, as you might suppose. We have gotten letters of thanks from the Veterans Hospital, the Baptist Hospital, and Children's Hospital. I still am waiting for Tipton and Hearst to part with the bill for the pom-poms for St. Patrick's Day. But clearly with $2,000 in the bank, we can cover the bill. And I don't have an update on what might have been donated through the QQA portal that they set up so graciously for us. I owe them a formal letter of thanks for being our techno link on that gift giving. You've seen the information on the St. Valentine's Day cost and donations. And at this point, with closing the UAMS COVID wards, it looks like we have come to the natural end of that. I had penciled in gifts for Memorial Day and July the 4th, and it looks like I'll just check to make sure nobody's still or started again major COVID hospitalizations for Memorial Day. But it looks like that has come to its natural conclusion, and we have done a very good thing, which was very much appreciated. The morale building was very, very high. So you all can pat yourselves on the back and pass the word in your respective networks. The bunch of bills that we're trying to get through the legislature, the worst in human memory and beyond the record, on getting standards for rent houses called warranty and habitability, is still stuck going back and forth with fierce resistance from the property owners and the landlords. They keep holding out discussions about, we won't pass your bill, but you can put some amendments in our bill. And we don't yet know the status of that. We're very apprehensive that it will be an awful outcome. Nothing has seemed to persuade them that the fact we've done this in all other states, including all the ones surrounding Arkansas, I repeat, all the ones surrounding Arkansas, has changed their attitude that this is horrible and terrible and we don't need to change a thing. It's real clear that a category of landlords that makes profit from current lack of standards wants to continue to be protected by the states to continue collecting their profits. One of the things that I found with help from research from my good friends in my network on this discussion was that of the 6 states around Arkansas, 5 of them, only excluding Tennessee, have in their existing warranties of habitability policies and regulations at the state level a provision that in the event a landlord neglects to fix that gas leak that we talked about earlier, the tenant can fix the gas leak and deduct the cost of that fix from their rent. So I tossed that into the mix just to point out that there's a lot more interesting policies that we might be debating in addition to the ones that were on the debate point. But as you can tell from this back and forth to date and many other issues, this bunch of legislators isn't hearing any of this. So the prospects are very poor. And we couldn't get any support meaningful for a straightforward repeal of the criminal eviction statute, which has just been coming in as a separate paragraph, just repealing it. There was a Representative McGraw, who clearly makes use of it in his own business model, who kept coming in and asserting falsely, there's no alternative, there's no other way to deal with it. And I hope you know, we've had a civil eviction process in the state of Arkansas since 1875. So it's once again a battling case of my facts versus your truth. And that's the worst kind of uphill struggle. Similarly, I can report that we seem to be in a treading water stage on the 30 crossing. John, you may have some more recent data for me on this, but as I understand it, the folks who have filed a suit against the whole endeavor have focused currently on demanding the record of paying back the general fund for general monies expended. When we won the lawsuit, they couldn't do it because it was 6 lanes, not 4. And I believe the state had ignored their obligations to, in fact, do that reporting and to do that money change out. And some legal action is coming forth down the pipeline about that. John, is that correct, or do you know any additional information?
No, that's about all I know. That is how I understand it, that they're filing to have those, the record disclosed.
In fact, I think just to add to the discomfort, Richard Mays had demanded that the illegally exacted 120 million be put into a fund overseen by the judge in the court system, which of course is a big, hairy pain. So we'll see if he manages to get anything done about that.
Well, congratulations to everybody who have, John, Kathy, others who put in more time on this litigation. The highway department is independent, and they trumpet that independence all the time. This notion where they have been nailed for $120 million, they're not used to being told what to do with their money. And even though there's a lot of money out at the highway department for normal operations, I'm not complaining about that, but I don't think they have $120 million laying around that they didn't already have intentions for. And so I don't know what they're going to do, but for those of you all talking to the lawyers and all that, just put the pedal to the metal. Make these guys, they clearly violated the law. I mean, clearly. 4 lanes does not equal 6 lanes. 6 lanes does not equal 4 lanes. And they need to pay that money back.
We are working hard. Robert, you have your hand raised.
I want to point out the current issue of the National Geographic really drives it home about how air pollution kills thousands of people every year. It's really hard to measure because it affects every organ system, so you can't point out some single disease like mesothelioma, but statistical methods have now been developed that shows that air pollution is really bad on our health, and the COVID deaths increased with more air pollution. And I think it's unconscionable to build freeways where children play, and so they develop asthma, and permanent lung conditions just because people want to drive through their neighborhood to go to some suburban town.
I have seen that, and I think I can lay my hands on it, and I will try and send that out to everybody and make sure that Richard Mays has the benefit of it, because he might be able to make some good use of that. Any other issues and policies to bring up to the group here?
Just one, and I don't want to go on about this because if the mayor in fact does show up next month, that's obviously the forum. But I just want to tell the group, the statutes that enable cities to use sales taxes to raise money are what, 30, 40 years old. I remember when the first enabling law was adopted in 1980. The city of Little Rock, they could never even enact sales taxes before 1980. So in 1980, now there's a law that says cities can use sales taxes. Well, within 90 days, the Little Rock City Board of Directors had a sales tax on the ballot. It failed, and there's all this history in the decades since, but there's been other statutes adopted about sales taxes available to both city governments and county governments. One enables a city to adopt a specialized sales tax for parks. And notwithstanding sort of the Christmas tree approach that seems to be what the mayor is proposing, and it's a free country, he can propose what he wants to. But if it seems to me that the leading edge of all of this is the park system. Well, I think probably the park system has been underfunded. And parks are good for people for some of the reasons we've just stated. But if what we want to do is improve parks and make sure that the money goes to parks, adopt the park sales tax. Now that means all his other stuff is going to have to, wait for another day. But I'll get the citation and forward it to everybody. But this seems to me a real alternative that ought to come up in this discussion.
Thank you, Jim. I do think that we should all try and prepare questions like Denise was talking about for giving to the judge in advance. I think we have more meaningful use of limited time when we have given them the question in advance, and even where we might dispute or dislike the answer, at least we are not going to be hit with, well, I'm going to have to research that and get back to you, which I think we all really are past being tolerant of. But that's on us in the next couple of weeks to try and come up with a good list of questions and research. And in fact, one of the things that I am very interested in researching, and anyone else might be wanting to get in on this, is you compare the, I think MetroPlan is following all of this data very closely about the incomes of our population now and after the pandemic has washed through the community and done so much damage compared to the previous year. As we know, the sales tax is hitting low-income families hardest. We have data followed very carefully about the numbers of low-income families, the neighborhoods in which they live, the amount of income the government recognizes they have. My guess is that we should be able to find a number such as the census tracts for downtown or Central High or Capitol View show X numbers of moderate and X numbers of low-income households at a particular number of dollars for, let's call it 2019. And by now, maybe they're beginning to get some numbers for 2020, and they're lower. So the question that occurs to me is not simply the more conventional debate, the sales tax hits low-income families the hardest, but how much income has dropped so that these families would be facing even harder numbers. And I'll be real curious to see what I can research about that. And if y'all have a chance to get at any numbers like that, let's continue the discussion in emails directly. Because it seems to me one of the fair questions is not what the mayor wants, but who's going to pay this tax and how able are they to pay this tax on their living operations and daily living expenses compared to a year and 2 years back. And what do we think about what we find? Yes, Robert.
I want to point out that instead of calling it a parks tax, we could call it a parks and trails tax, so that we could walk to our parks. Jim could take his dog for a walk on a designated trail, something improved. We could put trails along the natural drainways of Little Rock because people like to walk alongside creeks, even if they're small creeks. They love running water. And since they removed the sales tax from food, we should suggest that the city should reduce sales tax on food, milk, and diapers. If they're going to change the tax structure.
That's coming down, Robert. there is a reduction in the sales tax on basic food items per year for a period of 5 years. Jim, do you remember how that goes?
I'm not aware of this. This is,
The state is cutting sales tax on food items.
The city is still.
well, they're almost there. I mean, BB started it, and so there's been
Yeah, they're close to the conclusion.
yeah, there's an incremental decrease every year, and if it's a food item at a grocery store, the sales tax will almost be zero, I think, right?
The state tax. Now, Robert's correct that that doesn't have a thing to do with the local sales tax. That's a different line item on the computation. But you know, I don't think that the city has that legal authority.
But there's a little bit that's given to game and fish and to something else. Those little bitty taxes, they still apply equally on food and everything else. And I think the city wants to get a sales tax on food.
Well, I know.
If they can lift it, Robert, they don't have the legal ability to not do it. Their sales taxes are all or nothing. They don't have categories.
I'll stick up my hand and take responsibility for checking it out. I was under the assumption that the sales tax, all sales taxes, city, county, state, was being eliminated from food, but maybe not.
Okay, do check that because that was not my remembrance, but by all means, let's not assume we know what we're talking about.
Right.
Is there any other topic we know we really want to research going forward in preparation to take up the sales tax?
Oh, well, you know, same issues, but always worthy of discussion. You know, it's
Yes, indeed.
It's pretty amorphous. His proposal is, at this point, in my judgment, kind of amorphous. I'm not quite sure. I mean, everybody understands, the experts and lay people, early childhood education is very, very important. I mean, the earlier the kids can get lined out on school and good academic habits is great, but city government, you know, police department, fire department, parks, pick up the garbage, pave the streets and so forth. City government doesn't do early childhood education. And I'm interested, part of this proposal is early childhood education. And I'm very interested to hear what is actually being proposed at the granular level. Because this is really something very, very new and different.
You're right. This is probably the most major departure from previous policy of anything that they're talking about. And one of the obvious companion questions, by the way, we will begin to see some very specific items when the ordinance to put the sales tax on the ballot comes forward. And I gather that's coming in the next week or 10 days. So then we'll really, by the time of our meeting, know the scope of the proposal.
Is the board, are you sure the board is ready to vote on this?
No, but I'm saying the mayor is ready to release this proposal for adoption by the board, if I understood what I saw correctly.
Oh, okay.
Which isn't the same thing as bringing it up to a vote.
All right.
You're right. But that begins when he has to say, please vote this for referral on the ballot. You get your specifics that we're looking for. And one of the questions that this whole early childhood diversion of money into from city tasks to the school district is the school district, which remember has not raised its own millage on the properties of the city district. And my dim recollection is there was a millage increase that was defeated in the recent years. Jim, am I correct on that?
Well, yeah, there was it was what, 2015 or 16?
Sometime in the last 5 years, yeah.
Yeah, it was 16. They were under state control, but they proposed a a quite expansive capital program. They were going to
Yes.
use the money to build the new Southwest school and all that. As it turned out, it was a bond issue. It was one another of these, and I know this is being recorded, but so what? But you know, it was another bonanza for Stevens Inc. because they were going to handle the bond issue and so forth. And as it turned out, it got defeated, but the school district had the authority to, in effect, refinance some existing bonds or whatever. And most of this stuff got done anyway. It was.
Yes,
Yeah.
but, you know, that's one of the questions. If there is a question of laying a new tax burden on taxpayers of Little Rock for early childhood education in the schools, where does the school millage, which has carried that obligation to this day,
Right,
fit in?
right, exactly.
Because I believe there's some talk about a proposed millage increase
Oh, I'm
with
sure.
the beginnings of return of local control.
Right,
So these are both moving through the policy debate of the community at the same time.
right.
And we just need to be alert to that and share information as that comes forward. And particularly when they have their education coordinator, Jay Bart, speaking about all of this. One expects him to address that very policy debate. And we'll be alert to that and pass that on. That's very interesting about the dedicated parks. I think there was a suggestion that they do that maybe a decade ago.
Yeah,
I've forgotten what point of that day, but it was hastily suppressed because we're saving this for some future important but secret application.
well, if, to be honest, and I'll submit my questions and we can send them on to the mayor. The other one on that line is, all right, historically, you know, you've got city parks. I'll be the first to say they need to be upgraded all around. But see, the zoo is a part of the Parks Department. Well, the zoo devotees always thought that the zoo didn't get enough attention from City Hall and so forth. And one of the ways they, quote, corrected that was at some point in the past, what, 20 years ago or more, the zoo is now a separate city department. It is not part of parks. And so it stands alone, just like police and fire and all that. Well, now you see that part of what we're reading about is that the zoo is, you know, front and center and sort of at the point of the spear of this sales tax proposal. Well, here's the argument. The zoo is great. It's a great feature of the city and so forth. And my data is very, very old. It needs to be updated. But there was a point in time where an analysis of all the people going through the turnstile at the zoo, at least half of them weren't even from the city of Little Rock. You see, it's a statewide attraction. You come to Little Rock and you go to a Razorback game or a Travelers game or the ballet or the arts or whatever, and if kids are involved in all that, you take them to the zoo. Great. Except the only people that are really supporting the zoo on a 24/7 basis are the taxpayers of the city of Little Rock. I think you can make an argument at a minimum, and this also goes for the ballet, the symphony, the art center and all that. Why aren't North Little Rock, Sherwood, Maumelle, Jacksonville, and all that contributing like the City of Little Rock General Fund does every year to a lot of money? They ought to be contributing to the zoo. And then I think I could, with enough time and patience, make the argument that the zoo really ought to be part of the State Parks Department. It's a statewide attraction.
Oh, Jim, I got the answer to that in a private conversation, carefully off the record. The last time this came up, 2 years back, I guess. And the answer is, well, they'll never straightforwardly say it right out front in news cameras, they're not about to give up the control over this wonderful revenue and image benefit and asset to the city, to others. It's wrong to say that it's a cash cow because, as you pointed out,
I didn't say it was a cash
a lot
cow.
of maintenance for overhead, but it is an unquestionably an asset that the city does not want to see pass under state control.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know, the zoo's not going to go anywhere. It's always, the zoo's not going anywhere. It's going to be at War Memorial Park in Little Rock, Arkansas. The question is,
what exhibits they put there
well,
is not going to become a state-controlled policy decision.
Well, whatever. I mean,
so that's where that goes. Yes, Robert, you had a hand.
If the mayor can talk the city of Little Rock into raising sales taxes for a giraffe, I guess more power to him. But we've got lots of more important stuff to make our city better, I think.
Yes, but it's dull stuff like rehabbing substandard homes instead of housing for giraffes.
Yeah.
My point is we ought to house people before giraffes. Yes, Robert.
That's my opinion too. Feed and house people over strange animals. But I want to point out that we had a thriving elementary school in my neighborhood. They put in a freeway which eliminated houses, and houses are where children live. And after a while, the school district came to us and said they couldn't find enough students to attend our school. The freeway was still there and the houses were still gone. We have a lovely Boys and Girls Club across the street. They had to let go another staff member, probably because of funding difficulties. The city of Little Rock has contributed to their operating funds so the kids would have a place to go after school. I don't know how that funding has turned out, but I know the staff member is gone. So, the decisions the city makes, early childhood and education should include some place for the kids to go after school, and the Boys and Girls Club has always served that function. But now there's one more staff member gone. And the elementary school turned into early childhood education center and then was sold to a private individual specifically to make sure it did not become a charter school.
Well, I hear you loud and clear. In fact, what you described is a community center for kids, which is great. No opposition to that, but that's not, that's more, honestly, that's more childcare and babysitting than it is early childhood education. And so but the mayor's touting it as early childhood education, and we need to find out exactly what he's talking about.
Well, we do, and we need to include a comparison and contrast question with the contracts for the prevention, intervention, treatment the city's had for some decades now.
Right.
A lot of what Robert's talking about is basically gang prevention by giving the kids and the latchkey kids a place to go that isn't hanging out with the local gang.
Right.
That was the whole thrust of that, which everyone heartily believes they should spend some city dollars on.
Right.
So you can certainly argue the same exact policy benefit from the city investing in early childhood education.
Well, but is it education?
It's hardly
I
very
think,
clear cut.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see.
And we need to delve into that and get and draw out very meaningful compare and contrast information with them.
Well, he needs to have a real proposal. I mean, this whole thing of issuing a press release with 5 talking points and expecting that to be it is not enough.
We couldn't agree more. Okay, I think we have reached the stopping point. Look for us to meet again on May the 8th and talk sales tax, however that's structured. Let us begin to exchange a proposed list of questions that we will try and research and compile and send to him, let's say, a week in advance. So that would be basically May the 1st. We need to hear everybody's questions. And I want to say a special thank you to Mary and Pierre for being our technical aides in this. I still have a lot to learn, and we could not have run so smoothly in operation without you. And please note that Mary is still in Canada with her new husband. But
Oh,
she'll be back
really?
in our city before the month is out, we think.
Where in Canada are you hiding out?
I'm in Mirabel, outside of Montreal.
Really? Well, you know, crocodile tears from the rest of us. It must be hard work living near Montreal.
Oh, they've been in Mexico for their wedding in December until just now,
Do you
when they're
speak,
now going to clear the apartment of the husband.
are you, now
Mexico
Montreal,
for months.
is that
Honeymoon.
in the French area of Canada? Are you having to learn to speak French?
I can say merci beaucoup. That's about it. Yes, this is a French area.
Okay. Well, great.
The food
Well,
must
don't
be
don't enjoy the cool weather too much.
But we will welcome her back with very great appreciation once she's in the city again. Thank you so much. I'm going to say we will close the session now. Mary, I guess